Hi, it's Sam. This is my third in defending polygamy. This video covers a few leftover tidbits about polygamy and has quotes from some of the people who participated in polygamy. My purpose for using these quotes is to show three things. First, that those who entered into polygamy did not do it out of lust. In fact, they were reluctant and even appalled at the idea when first told about it. Second, the quotes will show that the participants were not coerced or threatened with damnation if they refused. Third, they show how the polygamists received peace in their hearts, that God approved of the unions they were to enjoy. Here are the thoughts and words on the matter.
Nauvoo High Counselor James Allred remembered that he did not believe it at first. It was so contrary to his feelings, but he said he knew Joseph was a prophet of God. So he made a covenant that he would not eat, drink, or sleep until he knew for himself that he had got a testimony that it was true, that he had even heard the voice of God concerning it.
One LDS caller tried to tell Sean that lust or power weren't the motives behind polygamy, but Sean brushed it off. Well, lust and power weren't the motives. In fact, Brigham Young, probably the one who had the most wives and children, went through untold grief before he finally realized that he had to accept it. Susan Young Gates, one of his daughters, reported that her father adopted the principle of plural marriage after great inner struggles and earnest prayer.
His strict puritanical training ill-fitted him to accept such a doctrine. He foresaw the storm of abuse and opposition which such action would arouse, and it was as death to him. He told my mother once that he brooded and sorrowed for months, unreconciled in reason, yet converted in his spirit to its truth. And when he saw a funeral procession pass his door, he cried out in the bitterness of his soul, "Oh, that I could exchange places with the one who lies in that quiet coffin." We say this, we who ought to know, we who were born under its influence, and who owe our lives to the parents who lived and practiced this principle in righteousness. The majority of the relatively few who practiced this order of marriage did so with righteous motives. Of that I can bear witness.
This woman went on to say they lived in a happy unity with great food that was very healthy. Phoebe W. Woodruff, Apostle Wilford Woodruff's first wife, penned this account.
When the principles of polygamy was first taught, I thought it the most wicked thing I ever heard of. I became sick and wretched. As soon, however, as I became convinced that it originated as a revelation from God through Joseph, and knowing him to be a prophet, I wrestled with my Heavenly Father in fervent prayers to be guided aright at that all-important moment of my life. The answer came. Peace was given to my mind. I knew it was the will of God, and from that time to the present, I have sought to faithfully honor the patriarchal law. Of Joseph, my testimony is that he was one of the greatest prophets the Lord ever called, that he lived for the redemption of mankind and died a martyr for the truth.
My mind was carried away from the earth, and I had a view of the order of the celestial kingdom. I saw that plural marriage was from the Lord, and oh, how beautiful! I was filled with love and joy that was unspeakable. I waked my husband and told him of the views I had, and that it was too sacred for fools to handle, for they would use it to gratify their lustful desires.
It has been said that Joseph sent Orson Hyde on a mission, then married Miranda, his wife, while he was away. This is an accusation that was taken out of context, which made Joseph appear to be a lusty, sneaky man. But the fact is that this was a sealing, not a marriage that we know of. And it was done 1 or 2 years after Orson left on his mission. Todd Compton said, "It is striking that Miranda had no children while Orson was on his mission to Jerusalem, and then became pregnant soon after Orson returned home."
When I reflected that I was living in the dispensation of the fullness of times, embracing all other dispensations, surely plural marriage must necessarily be included, and I saw that the set time had come. I knew that God was speaking. As I increased in knowledge concerning the principle and design of plural marriage, I grew in love with it. I was sealed to the prophet. This, one of the most important circumstances of my life, I have never had cause to regret.
Priscinda Buell, whose husband was a non-member, said, quote, "To the best of my ability, I have honored plural marriage, never speaking one word against the principle," close quote. Her motivation for sealing to Joseph is alluded to by Emmeline B. Wells.
She knew Joseph to be a man of God, and she had received many manifestations in proof of this. And consequently, when he explained to her clearly the knowledge which he had obtained from the Lord, she accepted the sealing ordinance with Joseph as a sacred and holy confirmation.
This announcement from the prophet was indeed a thunderbolt to me. Even after praying, I was tempted and tortured beyond endurance until life was not desirable. Oh, that the grave would kindly receive me, that I might find rest on the bosom of my dear mother. Oh, let this bitter cup pass. And thus I prayed in the agony of my soul. It was near dawn, after another sleepless night, when my room was lightened up by a heavenly influence. To me it was, in comparison, like the brilliant sun bursting through the darkest cloud. My soul was filled with a calm, sweet peace that I never knew. Supreme happiness took possession of me, and I received a powerful and irresistible testimony of the truth of plural marriage, which has been like an anchor to the soul through all the trials of life.
I want to interject here a principle that is taught in the LDS Church. That principle is the importance of getting your own witness of the doctrine and tenets of the church and of the directives of the prophets. People have accused us of being sheep. They often quote the misplaced or misinterpreted phrase, "When the prophet speaks, the thinking is done." The officials of the church have apologized for letting that phrase slip out to the public and to its members of the church in the context as published. The real truth is, we are encouraged to get our own witness on the things the prophets tell us. Helen Mar Kimball, Joseph's youngest wife, quote unquote, tells us of this process when she was faced with polygamy in her life. Helen was sealed at the request of her father. Repeat, sealed at the request of her father, and left these reminiscences.
I learned that most important lesson, that in him alone must I trust, and not in weak and sinful men, and that it was absolutely necessary for each one to obtain a living witness and testimony for him or herself, and not for another, to the truth of this latter-day work. I was shown the principle of celestial marriage. I knew that it was from God. The vision of my mind was open to see and understand the will and design of the Almighty. I had a view of the order of plural marriage. The beauty and the glory which I saw in it was enough to make up for the trials in this life.
This kind of witness can and has happened. I've had witnesses that were so powerful a vision wasn't necessary. Now, I have a list here which bears information about some of Joseph's wives. Each one of these had to go through a period of acceptance, like the ones quoted a few minutes ago, some of them quite grueling, but most, if not all of them, enjoyed transcendental kinds of witnesses concerning polygamy. I won't read about all their spiritual experiences because it will take too long, but I'll start with the basic information that will give us a taste of the general attitude. And while reading the list, note the ages and other details such as continued to live with her family or husband, or no children, and so on. Loiza Beeman, married at 25 years old in Nauvoo, no children. Loiza was reported to be a woman of irreproachable morality who entered into the plural marriage relationship on a deep-seated conviction that the doctrine was from God. According to Brian C. Hales, after Loiza Beeman, Joseph Smith thought almost exclusively eternity-only sealings. This means there were no marriage relationships. Sarah Cleveland was 54 when she was sealed for married to Joseph, but she continued to live with her husband. Elizabeth Durfee was sealed to Joseph by proxy after he died. Esther Dutcher was sealed to Joseph, but lived with her husband until she died. Desdemona Fuller was sealed July 1843. Desdemona reported a night vision in which an angel told her that the polygamy doctrine was true. Lucinda Harris was sealed by proxy to Joseph after his death. Elvira Annie Holmes was married to Joseph at age 29. Her husband never wavered in his loyalty to the Mormon leader. Mary Elizabeth Leitner, whose husband was not a member, was sealed, not married, and lived with her husband until after his death in 1885. Concerning her witness, Mary Elizabeth Rollins reported that an angel came to her and it went through her like lightning. Patty Bartlett Sessions was sealed to Joseph Smith for eternity only on March 9, 1842. Her husband was probably separated from her at the time of the sealing, but he remained a faithful member and diligent missionary. Zina Diantha Jacobs was sealed to Joseph Smith by her brother, Dimmick Huntington. She was 6 months pregnant by Henry and continued to live with him. Of the sealing, Zina reported, "I am no dreamer, but I had dreams that I could not account for. I know this is the work of the Lord. It was revealed to me even when young." Maria Lawrence, a criminal complaint was brought against Joseph Smith, alleging adultery with Maria. Ultimately, Joseph was innocent of this charge, and some authors have suggested that Joseph's legal strategy probably implied that the sealing with Maria was never consummated. Note keyword sealing, another key term, never consummated, because it was a sealing. Sylvia Sessions Lyon was sealed to Joseph Smith on 8th of February 1842. Her husband Windsor's reaction is not recorded, but he was a faithful active member of the church at the time. Her last daughter was not of Joseph, according to DNA evidence. Eliza Partridge wrote, "He taught me and Emily the plan of celestial marriage and asked us to enter into that order with him. This was truly a great trial for me, but I had the most implicit confidence to him as a prophet of the Lord." Emily Partridge said no at first, but in the interim, without any influence or pressure from Joseph, accepted. She related, "I prayed to be enlightened in regard to what I should have done. Well, in time, I became convinced that there was nothing wrong about it." Ruth Vos Sayers was married for eternity only. That means not married according to the laws of the land. For eternity only. Her husband was a non-member, but remained friendly. The marriage or sealing was with Emma's consent. It's hard to know how many Emma consented to, because her reaction is not recorded in all cases. But according to our doctrine, the first wife has to give consent, or there will be no sealing marriage. Mary Heron Snyder and her husband seem to have endured significant periods of estrangement after 1833. Also, the couple's marriage was never sealed, but the husband died active and faithful in the church. There is a one-sentence claim of sexual relations between her and Joseph by a son-in-law, Joseph E. Johnson, but without additional documentation, reliable conclusions are speculative. Okay, accounts from parents or church leaders. Elizabeth Whitney recalled, quote, "My husband and I had a heavenly encounter so perfect that we were willing to give our eldest daughter, then 17 years of age, to Joseph in the order of plural marriage." Lorenzo Snow recalled, "It was revealed to me before the prophet Joseph Smith explained it to me." It was revealed to me before the prophet Joseph Smith explained it to me. I had been on a mission to England between 2 and 3 years, and before I left England, I was perfectly satisfied in regard to something connected with plural marriage. Other members or leaders who had witnesses were Thomas Grover, Martha Jane Knowlton Corey, Samuel Amos Woolley, and Howard Corey and his wife. They had dreams about it before it was announced. Now, Sean said that the fruits of polygamy are pain. Did he mean that was all? I'm sure there are a lot more fruits than just pain. And it may be true that there is pain when an individual is initially called to perform it. But what does that pain bring? Always, when one wants to be strong, pain is involved. Climbing a great mountain involves pain. But when that mountain is conquered, you have gained strength. You have gained wisdom and valuable experience. In the realms of spiritual challenges, you achieve something else that's very important. You get closer to God, because by necessity you pray to Him. You pray for understanding, for hope, for strength, and for God's will to be done. Most, if not all, women on this list went through the agony that Lucy Walker partially described. I say partially because her sorrow was more bitter than what I included here. But I haven't included those and the tribulations of the rest of the women to help keep this video short. But all the women who accepted the prophet's offer were greatly blessed. They received blessings, marvelous transcendental blessings, with many faceted applications that they never would have received otherwise. Thanks for listening and have a nice day.